So we are with Comrade from Israel. Hello, and could you firstly present yourself, how you came to channel Rebirth of Communism, all these things which you write to me, you can say here.
Okay, so my name is Noam Pfister. I am 20 years old from Beersheba, Israel. I am a physics student and a former IDF soldier, and I got out of the army because of mental reasons. If you want, we can talk about it a bit later, and I still didn't recover. So I'm a lot at home, and I decided to study because I didn't want to completely rot. So yeah, and uh, how did I come to the channel? So there is the short answer and the long answer. The long answer is that I made a political transition in the last year and a half, and I came from being, relatively speaking, conservative to, gradually becoming more and more sort of left wing.
Start
Uh,
and try to speak louder a little.
okay, so I mean, I'm not speaking loud because I don't want to make noise. Still live with my parents, so I don't want. So I can now. Can you hear me well or no?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, well, so what I'm saying is that I made a political transition in the last year and a half from being, relatively speaking, conservative to being more, let's call it left. I mean, if you want to call it that way. And the short answer is that I just saw you in one channel, and then with this guy Donald from who lives in Russia now.
Yes, 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 yes.
And then I
Donald
just
Carter.
Yeah, and when I just saw some of your videos, and especially I liked especially the ones on Poland, and I said, okay, Polish guy from the former so-called Iron Curtain. So it means that maybe he knows a lot of things that a lot of Western leftists don't know. So that's why I came to you. Yeah.
Okay, and you are your family is originated from Poland, yes?
Part of it, yeah. So for my mom's side, her mom's side is completely Polish, and her dad's side is from Ukraine, mainly from central Ukraine. And for my dad's side, it's a bit more complicated because his mom is from German origin, but her dad was born in Wrocław, which was part of Germany up until 1945. But now it's part of Poland, and the other side is like Argentina, but originally they came from Ukraine, and before that, probably Switzerland. That's why my name is Fierce. That's my sure name, my family name. Because there is our hypothesis is that there is a lake called Lugano Lake, and the name of the lake in German is Vierstatter Wald See. So we presume that there is a chance that we are originally.
So it is funny history because the history of the Polish socialism is began mostly by the Jewish person. When we saw the first Polish circles of Marxists in 1970s, in in 1870s.
Yeah.
there was a guy who was a name Szymon Dickstein. He wrote he wrote a very popular in this time book. It's Kto z czego żyje? Who live from whom? And it is very short and very popular summarize of the Capital of the Karl Marx, because in this time Capital wasn't translated in Polish, and the Polish people are learning Marxism from this book, which was a short book, which was written by Jew Szymon Dickstein. And in the whole history of the Marxism in Poland, the people from the Jewish people are very active. We have Rosa Luxemburg, we have Hilary Minc. Hilary Minc, he is responsible for the building socialism in Poland after 1945, and it is why the Polish fascists and Polish extreme right, they using this term that it is
Judeo-Bolshevism.
yes, and now you are coming to me, and you want to know something about socialism, but all things which you know about socialism, it's come from your country, from your people. So
Yeah, from my people, but it's hard to say my country because the thing is that the founding fathers of Israel, they sometimes they call themselves socialists, but in reality, it wasn't really the case. I mean, they had a lot of influence from labor, especially agricultural labor. So, for example, my great grandpa from my mom's side, he was an Israeli member of parliament in the party of Ben Gurion, and he founded a small village in the north of Israel, but um, it was always very elitist, and it was mired with a lot of problems from racism to elitism and to lack of understanding of what socialism really means. You know, the difference between utopian socialism and scientific socialism. You probably know that. So for example, in Israel, we have a movement called the kibbutz, which I believe, and I can tell it from personal experience, because that was one of the things that turned my father to the right. So we lived several years in the kibbutz, and you see the problems of that, and when you say, okay, so we will become neoliberal, you see what I'm saying. So if you, the only thing that you see is something that is somewhat disorganized and lacks theoretical basis, then of course we will hate socialism, you know.
okay, and so you think that kibbutz was socialism or not?
It was, everything in reality, it has a lot of contradictions because if you look at it in terms of racially and class-based, when I say class-based, I mean, you know that in the Jewish community you have the Ashkenazi Jews, you know, like me, but you also have the Mizrahi Jews. Okay, so now where I live, for example, differences are not that big, and in fact, yeah, there is much more chance that they will laugh at you if you are like Ashkenazi, like me, than not. So they say, no, you burn in the sun and all of that. But when the country was founded, the Ashkenazi Jews, they were from the elite. So that's why I say, that's what I mean when I say also class-wise, that people who went to the kibbutz were not the poor people, and the racial was, yeah, I mean, mostly Jews, you didn't, I mean, and they were very hawkish when it comes to relations to the Arabs and all that. And if it was somewhat socialist, it was like a utopian socialist because they kind of said, okay, let's just, abolish all wage differences and let's just organize small communities, and they even made, in my view, the wrong distinction between personal and private property. Like so it created too much bureaucracy when it comes, for example, to like homes and stuff like that. And the thing is that when I learned about the countries like the USSR, all of that, I see that it's very different, much better than this. It's kind of like what you had in Catalonia in Spain, you know, when you had small communities, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really function. It's like, I'm not an anarchist. Yeah.
Yes, I heard about that the children which are born in kibbutz
Yeah.
that
My grandma, for example. Yeah.
your father
No, my
was
grandma.
your grandma was
I
born
never
in
saw
kibbutz.
her, by the way. I
Ah,
never saw her, but she was born.
so I heard that it was not that the parents are choosing the name, but it was the meeting of all the kibbutz, and all people who belong to kibbutz they choosing the name. You know this
I'm not
story?
sure about that part, but what I do know is that now it's not that bad. But before there was something called I don't remember the name of it in Hebrew, but it's where you just put your children and they grow together in at least for a long part of the day, but now it no longer exists. Yeah. That's what I know.
Okay, so do you have question? What do you want to talk?
Yeah, I want to first of all say some things about self and why I came, to the political conclusions I got on. So the thing is that I was always more populist inclined. Okay, I always hated the elites, and in reality, I never really liked the way that the capitalist system treats human beings as being cog in the machine, like all of the competition. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes that many people on the left do is that they say, now we have monopoly capital. And if we have competitive capital, it's good. No, competitive capital, it's terrible. I mean, you probably agree with me, right? That competition is not that nice. I mean, competition for the ordinary people, it's like tyranny,
Yes.
so and the thing is that when I was growing up in my high school, I saw that that most of the elites, they vote for like the liberal left, the fake left, So I said, so Netanyahu and all of those people, they're like the real populists, like the right, So I kind of fell for it. But then, like, went to the army, and then when I got out, I just became angry at many things, including things that my father, because my father is like, for me, represents like, I mean, I got a relationship with him, but politically he represents like elitism and like, pro-capitalist thinking and all of that stuff. Now I just hate it and I want to smash it. You know what I'm saying? I want to smash this. That's my thinking in the head. And one of the things that really worried me is that the Israel public is under extreme propaganda, not only in the economic sense, which is very obvious, but especially when it comes to wars and foreign policy and all of that. So so most of the Israeli public, for example, really believes that the world just hates us, and we are always the victim, and they always like fully behind the wars and military and and you are not allowed to question like the basic narratives, you know. So, for example, have you heard about the term false flag terrorism?
No. I think that I heard it, but now I don't say I don't know what does it mean. Could you explain?
It means
False.
that false. Okay, so have you heard about Operation Gladio in Europe in the Cold
Ah,
War?
yes, in Italy. Yes.
Not only in Italy, yeah, but
That
mainly in Italy.
CIA they give the weapons to the fascists who made the terrorist attacks and
Yeah,
wanted
and
to
they blamed
destroy
it
the left.
exactly. So that's what it means that you have false flag. It means that you have. So, for example, the you remember that you had the Paris 2015 attacks and things like that,
Ah, in Paris,
or
yes,
or in
yes,
Nice in 2016. So
yes,
notice
yes.
that every one of those times you see that a lot of shady things come with the evidence and all of that, and you see that the victims are blamed immediately. Like, and you see that they immediately say, we need to go to Syria or Iraq or something like that. So is in Israel, it's very extreme because is the issue of terror is really useful for the Israeli ruling class to control the population because all they have to say to you is that you support terrorism or that you are weak on terrorism or something like that, and then you are gone. And so we have these rockets from Gaza, but before that, a really extremely important event was called the Second Intifada in the early 2000s. And I suspect that a lot of those big suicide bombings in the city were false flag attacks. But no one asks it. I mean, I don't know because no one asks it, and I just want to raise the attention. It cannot be that such important events that affect public opinions cannot even be questioned, you know?
Yes, it's complicated subject, what you said, and it is complicated to speak about in internet because in internet you have algorithm. When you speak about this, they can say that it is propagation of the terrorism and they ban it, and it's very complicated to speak about it publicly. What do we
Yeah,
think
but
about?
the thing is that the left, I never heard one person in the Israeli left who is like pro-Palestinian or something like that talks about this issue. They always kind of fall for the trap of like, or kind of trying to not necessarily justifying it, but kind of like saying that maybe it's not that bad, but we don't understand that the purpose is not to kill people. The purpose of terrorism is to change public opinion. Like we said in the Mossad, terrorism is a theater. It's a con game. You know what is a con game? It means that you are being deceived. That is the purpose of terrorism. It's optics, you know? And that's why my attitude is that the first thing that you should do if you see something like that is fucking turn off the news and don't listen to anything. Okay? So, for example, here in Israel, for example, where I live, once in a while, not you have rockets like from Gaza, you know. Most of them are homemade and don't do, a lot of damage. But they do scare the population and they cause they cause the public to immediately turn to like, let's attack Gaza. So in my view, if something like that happens, what you should do is, of course, go to the shelter and all that, but don't turn on TV. That's the biggest mistake that people do. They turn on TV and they see the pundits say to them, interpret the events for them, and and then the public just let's go to war, like immediately, like let's go to war. Yeah.
And what do you think about situation in Gaza?
In what respect? Humanitarian?
Yes, yes, all this because
I think
for me
it's
it is shame
terrible.
that.
I think that one of the mistakes that
Oh, I don't. Could you when you are when you are when you're standing,
so
the quality internet of is better.
yeah. What?
Try to.
What do you say?
I think that
So
when you are standing, the your quality of
yeah, now
internet
I
is
just
better.
okay. Now I'm sitting. Okay, now it can be
Okay,
okay. I'm
okay,
just
when you are
sitting
sitting.
here next to. Okay, sure. So ask what you want to ask.
So, could you repeat what do you think about this humanitarian situation in Gaza?
I think that in general, not only in Gaza, the biggest mistake that the Israeli left is doing is that they support the so-called two-state solution, and that they think that the solution is to continue the separation between, Jews and Palestinians. In my view, the only prospect that any, like socialist left-wing movement can have in Israel is if people in Israel will say, wait a minute, the same ruling class that fucks Gaza over also fucks us over, because people in Israel believe, okay, maybe they do some bad stuff in Gaza, but at least they care about us, no, but we don't care about us and we don't care about Gaza. So, in my view, if you want to solve the situation in Gaza, we should just let the people of Gaza live in Israel. That's what we want, most of them. Most of them don't want to live. Most of them don't like Hamas. The only reason that they uh, are okay with Hamas is that Hamas at least gives them something, like small thing. But and another very important situation is that the Israeli population is completely brainwashed about Syria. I mean, I believe that sometimes believe that I'm one of the only people in Israel that that actually cares about Syria and actually feels like solidarity, with the Syrian government and the Syrian people and all of that.
So, if I good understand, you are for liquidation of this wall, which are in Israel on between Israel and Gaza, between Israel and
Yeah,
uh,
that's not only what I want, that's what
hmm?
they want, like the Palestinians. Why do you think that we had this month of return? They want to come here. I mean, think about it for a second, okay? When after the army, I went to a psychiatrist here in my city, and she's like Bedouin now. And she told me that she has some, family in Syria in the area, and so a lot of people who are Arabs in Israel have relatively big families in Gaza, Palestinian Authority, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, etc. So the idea that you're just going to, continue this artificial separation is insane. I mean, this land is one piece of land. We should just live here together and unite and overthrow the corrupt powers. That's it's not very complicated, my view. Mm.
No, it's not
But
complicated. It's
but if you say it,
internationalism. Yes.
but if you say it, they will say that you're, anti-Zionist and therefore maybe you are anti-Semitic. That's how they will say it. So my solution, like the reason that what I say is quote unquote radical is that it means that it's like non-Zion, it's not Zionism anymore, and that considers to be like a heresy in Israel.
Heresy?
Heresy, it's mean like
Ah,
something that you can't talk about.
yes, it's heresy like in a Christian church. There was a heresy.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, heresy is a religious term. It means that you uh, don't stay in line with the religious behavior. Yeah, that's what it means. Heresy.
Okay, and what do you think? What is the perspective for the communism in the next? Do you think are you because you are communist, yes? And in Israel there are communist party. Is it strong?
Not really. Not really. Not really. And part of the problem is you're probably aware of it because that's probably the same in Poland. That you have people who sometimes call themselves Marxists, but they are either, like Trotskyites or so like that, or they are like, they're like from the Frankfurts, they're like critical. But you don't have people who are, who expounds Marxian economics, and something that I learned from a good economist called Michael Roberts. I suggest you check his work because it's pretty good. Is that the Marxist economics is actually very, very accurate empirically. People don't really understand it, but it's actually so. If you look at crisis from the 2008 crisis to the Greek crisis, you see that there is always like very, very sound explanation. And the problem is that people think that that communism is like utopia, and that you probably all know all of that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I basically became on like communist when I just realized what communism is. Also, when I realized that even though I'm from, like petty bourgeois, small landlord family, like relative, I'm going, I want to be a physicist, okay? That's what I want to do. Or I want to be a teacher. Okay, so this kind of job are good in terms of, like socialist countries. And also, I'm a person who values more stable life than, consumerism, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, I believe that people should not be in debt, that they should have, small, good place to live. I mean, that's what I believe should be the prospect. I mean, and when I look at, for example, if you look at Poland, and Poland wasn't, like the best socialist country, but you had in the first time you had social mobility, and you had people with apartments and all of that stuff. So yeah, so that's good in my view. Yeah.
Yes, I think that Poland was was the worst socialist country which existed because in we had socialism in Poland only because the geographical things.
Yeah.
Because if you compare the communist movement in Poland and communist movement in Greece, it's better for the socialist camp that the Greece is the socialist camp and Poland stay in the capitalist camp because the popularity of the Communist Party was not very big, but because Poland was between East Germany and the Soviet Union, it
Yeah.
had to be the socialist state. But the party wasn't very popular, and it is why many reforms which are necessary to building the socialism in Poland didn't finished. First, these things, it was the question of the Catholic Church, that party was incapable to smash this
Yeah.
force, and also the question of liquidation of the private property, the land, and the
I
liquidation
mean,
of
like
the
collectivization of agriculture.
yes, and also the liquidation the public the private property in the small enterprise. All there are
Yeah.
many things which are capitalist, not socialist, and it is why we have after in 1980s we have the problem with shortage.
I listened to what Bruno said. I mean, I think he explained it very well. And yeah, so if I look at it, I mean, again, I'm not expert, but in my view, probably the best socialist country was East Germany. Then it was Czechoslovakia, was also pretty decent. I mean, in fact, I spoke with a Czech guy and it was pretty stable. Then you had the USSR maybe. Bulgaria was actually pretty decent. You know that Bulgaria used to be called the Silicon Valley of Eastern Europe. And then you have Poland. And the thing is that Hungary and Romania are countries that I'm not as certain about because in Hungary since 1956 you had something called goulash communism.
Yes.
And I'm not sure exactly what it is. And in Romania, you had this guy called Ceausescu, which also took loans from the IMF and all of that stuff, and he had pretty bad foreign policy. So, you know, that's why I made the list this way.
You know, I think that the socialist countries we have to divide it, the position these countries in the time of the Second World War. The Germany, Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary, they are the allies, the Hitler. And when Red Army came in these countries, it was very easy to make the revolution because all the
Yeah.
bourgeoisie,
No,
it
but in Hungary it wasn't that easy because they didn't have a partisan movement, and that's why they had this counter-revolution in '56. You probably know.
yes. But and I want to finish with that to make the economic change, it was easy. But
Yeah.
after this, you can't in one day build the popularity of the socialism. And when you say, for example, about Germany, in one hand you have right that the in economic and the social question the East Germany was the better state in the socialist country, but in other hand I think that it is not true that the Cuba, for example, is the better, because the people in Cuba, it's these people who made the
Yeah.
revolution, and
I
they are
talked about
proud
only
for
the
this revolution.
socialist camp. I only talked about the socialist camp in Europe.
Yes. But you know this difference when we if you want to compare the Yugoslavia and the East Germany. In Yugoslavia, they made many mistakes, but the people who made Yugoslavia, they were proud that they participated in the revolution. And in Germany, it was always this ambiguous situation that people accepted that now Soviet army are
Yeah, that's why
win the war.
in the first years they had NKVD camps and all of that stuff in East Germany in the first few years in East Germany because they needed to treat, a lot of, former Nazis. And yeah, one thing that I realized partly when I saw your videos is that after they came to power, those united fronts, there was actual terrorist resistance in all of those countries. So, for example, there is this guy, Witold Pilecki. I hope that I don't butcher his name, right?
Pilecki,
Pilecki.
Witold
Yeah,
Pilecki.
exactly. So I talked with a Polish guy who lives in Sweden, and he considers himself left-wing. But he is like anti-communist, and he told me that like Poland was under Soviet occupation for 40 years, and he told me that Pilecki was a hero of the Jews because he went to Auschwitz, but he didn't tell me about his terrorist. activities. He just said that it was a show trial. That's what we always say.
Yes, yes, it's in this terrorist activities after the Second World War. You have two different kind of people. You have the people who was the fascists in the time of war and fascists after the war, and you have the people like Pilecki who in the time of war they made a little things good. For example, is this history that he go to like the volunteer to the Auschwitz to make the resistance there? Is this true? Because it is not certain that it is true. Because the history is that one day he go to the street and he want to be imprisoned by the German, and he know that Germany will hand him to the Auschwitz. In Poland, you never are sure because German can kill you in the street. So this history that he wanted to go there like volunteer, I am not certain that it is true. But of course, he was kept, he was imprisoned, he was there, he built the resistance. It was, we can say that these things which he made was good. But normally when the war is finished, you see war is finished. Now we are building new country. Now we have Poland, and he after this wanted to continue the war. It is why I hate him, and he want to continue this war in the using the terrorist method, because he wanted to make a new war between Soviet Union and the United States. And for Polish people, which very in the time of the Second World War, many people died, he wanted that one more time is the war in
Yeah.
Poland, and many millions Poles will die again.
Yeah, another story that is like taboo in Poland is the cutting massacre. You've probably heard about it many times, right? The cutting massacre.
Yes, yes, it's it's. I think that this massacre was made by the Germans in the September 1941,
Not
and
only
we
the
have to.
Germans and also the Ukrainians.
No, 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 by Germans. By Germans, you have the.
Look at the work of Grover Fur on that. It's pretty decent. You heard about him?
Yes, 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 yes. The because we have in this 20,000 of police officers which are kept by the Russians in the 1949 in September when they are
Mm-hmm.
internated. The cutting, it is only 4,000 people, and you have other camps. Cutting in the forest, and we have the main difference between Katyn and Miednoje. It is that in Katyn everything is in order. That the German made the how to say,
Yeah.
line, and in this line are the people like this, which are died, and this kind of massacre Germans made in all Eastern Europe. You can
Yeah.
find this in the Yugoslavia. You can find this in Poland,
Yeah, and,
in
and also
Palmyra.
like what reason did the Soviet have of executing them? They didn't execute German, high-ranking generals in Stalingrad after they killed like 1 million people there. So the Soviet Union, they're not like some brutal, vengeful army. In fact, they even allowed some Hungarian fascists to join the Hungarian Workers' Party after the war. So they weren't some kind of, like monsters and crazy or. And another very, very important story to me, because I have family from the area of Ukraine, is the story of the Holodomor. And why I say it's important? because it is the myth that allows those far-right groups in the area to justify killing Jews in Ukraine, including people from my family. So that's why it's important, for me at least.
Yes, yes, but I will finish this history about Katyn because uh, the things which Soviet Union is accusation about this for Soviet Union is that Soviet Union make a massacre of the people one day, 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And it was not like this. It's true that the Soviet killed some of these officers. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
sure.
it is 2,000 people. 2,000 people who was in the before this war was responsible. They are guilty the anti-communism. They are guilty the killings the Ukrainians and stuff like this. But it was one by one. Everybody was in the trial. They say you are guilty and you are killed. And in Katyn we have different situation that we have not one by one, but you have the 1,000 people killed in a very short time. And it is something different because I am not against that to punish somebody who is guilty.
Yeah.
But of course, I am against the massacre like this that you
Yeah.
take 20,000 people and
Yeah.
kill like this. And Holodomor, it's that all these photos which are presenting about
Yeah.
Holodomors, it is true that it was the famine in the USSR, but in 1921.
But no,
19,
listen, there was a sort of famine in 1932-33, and the way that you can know that, if you look at the statistic from the Gulag, you see that there was increase in death, but it was scattered throughout the USSR, and it was more due, I mean, not really, but the deaths were more due to epidemics and like disease related to hunger, and less to, like people who are like, starving to death. Yeah, I mean, it was a very serious situation, but it was A, not deliberate, and B, it had nothing to do with the collectivization of agriculture. We always say, okay, so maybe it was deliberate, but collectivization of agriculture caused this famine. And that's also like ridiculous if you think about it for like several seconds, but we said it for like years and years. I mean, it's so insane how they present collectivization. It's like it was a failure. It was, they cannot say one good thing about it, even though it ended famines in the area and increased in agricultural production and allowed a lot of labor to go to the cities and prepared the Soviet soldiers about how to using machines. So, but we cannot say good things about it, the
Yes,
anti-communists.
because the collectivization is the most important thing to be to the reform of the Soviet Union. All these things which you have in 1920s in Soviet Union, they building factories, for example. But they
Yeah,
said it's not very different. We have factories in the capitalist states, we have factories in the Soviet Union. It's not very different. The collectivization is different because it shows that we can make production without exploiters, and it is the most important. And if nobody died in the famine, nobody, that capitalist countries have to make this propaganda because they don't accept that people in capitalist country understand that the collectivization is something good. So in the beginning,
yeah,
when the collectivization is started, they have to attack this and make all this story, all this propaganda, because if not, you show to the people from this country, watch the Soviet Union. We can make the economy without exploiters. We don't
yeah.
need them.
And I mean, when I look at Stalin, I mean, when I looked at like Stalin, I thought, oh, a monster or so like. But now I think that he was one of the best leaders of the 20th century, and he actually believed in something which is like very, very radical for leaders, because as you probably know, in most capitalist countries, leaders don't really believe in anything. He believed in something, and he was actually very populist. He was for the people, and he, didn't like he want the bureaucracy to serve the people, not the other way around. And that's why I believe that he deserves a place as one of the greatest leaders in the 20th century, not even including the fact that all of those, relatively decent things that we have in Western countries like France or Israel would never come to fruition without socialism, because the Red Menace compelled the capitalists to make concessions, not only in terms of social rights, but also they had to invest for long term technologies, because they don't want commonly the Soviet Union to look good, and they had to raise wages and all of that stuff. So that's why when the Soviet Union collapsed, everything else collapsed. So yeah, so Stalin deserves, in my view, a lot of respect. I don't know if you agree with me. Maybe you agree with me.
I think that bourgeoisie is not stupid. That bourgeoisie know what they do, and
Yeah, of
if
course we know what we do.
yes, and if bourgeoisie attacked Stalin because they hate Stalin the most, it's something in Stalin, because they don't attack the other leaders. They don't attack the leaders of the small organization of Trotskyists which never made any revolution,
Yeah,
any
they don't attack
collectivization.
anarchists a lot. Yeah,
They attacked somebody. They attacked Stalin because they know that Stalin, in the time when he was the rule, when he in power in Soviet Union, he started to build socialism, and it is why they are feared him. They are feared that somebody new party Bolshevik with new people like Stalin made these things one more time and better
yeah,
than Stalin, and it is why all this hatred against socialism, it is concentrated for him. And I am ashamed that many leftists don't understand it.
yeah.
And
I mean, I was telling it for people when I realized. I tell him, listen, he, it's not about this crime or that crime. Even if no one died, they would invent something,
yes, of course.
because they would hate him no matter what. Because people in the left, they believe that if we will just be kinder, if we will just be nicer, maybe they will just accept us. Like, no, they won't. So in Poland, you have this leader, Boleslav Bierut, right?
Yes, yes.
So he was also like Stalinism. I would also like to ask you about him. So who was he? What was his policy? How repressive he really was? Who really repressed? All of that stuff. Because if you read about him, for example, in Wikipedia, it's like he was a Stalinist. You know, he repressed many people of that stuff. So I want to know what is the truth about him.
We to speak about Beirut, the most important, we can say that he was the student of Stalin. That things which he made in Poland, it was the continuation. These things which are in Soviet Union. So if Beirut make mistakes, it because he was not very good student. For
Yeah,
example, when in Soviet Union they closed the churches, I wish that Bierut make stuff like this. But Bierut was a little opportunist. He wants to make alliance with Catholic Church. He allowed many that. Man, in the time of Bierut, the Catholic priest all the time they are allowed to going to the Polish schools and teach children about this religious stuff. And
Yeah.
so Bierut made many good things for Poland. I can say that he was somebody who renewed, create this Poland which exists today, because it was not sure that Poland will exist. We can also imagine situation that the Germans will kill all these Poles, all exiled Poles in the far east, in the Siberia or stuff, and the rebuilding of Poland, it is something that Bierut, to all history of our nation, we have to be proud and grateful to him. But
Yeah.
after, I don't think that he is the biggest Polish socialist. I think that the socialists who fighted for socialism in the like the revolutionaries, like Felix Dzierżyński, like theoretician Rosa Luxemburg, Julian
Yeah.
Marchlewski, there are a little.
Speaking of Brzezinski, right? That's how you say his
Dzierżyński,
name?
yes.
Brzezinski.
Dzierżyński.
Okay, Brzezinski. So so sorry. So he was known for instigating something that was called the Red Terror in the Russian Civil War. What is the truth about it? I mean, I was really curious about it because I said, the terror. What really happened?
Uh, Dzierżyński was a founder of the Polish Socialist Social Democratic Party. Its name Socjaldemokracja Królestwa Polskiego i Litwy. So it is Polish Social Democratic Party.
No, but he was
And
also the head of the Cheka.
yes, but after, wait, for it's and the Polish socialist movement was split in two party. One kind of it was Polish Socialist Party who wanted to build the independent Poland, and the Social Democrat, they wanted to fight for socialism in the all Russia. And it is why in the time of the Russian Revolution, the Social Democrats, they are the members of the party Bolshevik. And it is why Dzierżyński was the one of the leader of the party Bolshevik in the time of the revolution. Because the Russian Revolution, it was the revolution which are praised in Russia, but it was made by the Polish Dzierżyński, Georgian Stalin, Jew Trotsky, and many nations who lived in Russia. And after it was the creation of the Cheka was, in the first 6 months,
Wait a second. Can you pause for a second? I can go to the bathroom, or there is no possibility?
Okay.
No,
You
can
can
you
go.
pause the recording? Or no?
Pause recording.
For a second, just for a second.
I don't think if I can pause, but if you won't go, don't worry.
Yeah, just a second. So when you
Okay.
can continue this sentence,
Okay. So we are waiting for comrade. Okay, so the first 6 months of the Soviet government, it was the coalition between Bolshevik and the left of the Party Socialist Revolutionnaire. But after the treaty seen with Germany, the SR started to make the terrorist activity against Bolshevik. And they killed the German ambassador. They wanted to try to attack Lenin. And this is why the Bolshevik party needs to make the response for this terrorist activity. And when you fight with terrorists, you need to make the police which is specified to fight with terrorists. And,
yeah, in Israel we also have. See.
Yes, you are.
In every nation you have it. Yeah.
But in the beginning, the Cheka was it was very small organization. It was only because it was small organization. Because the problem with when you fight with terrorism, that you don't need to have big organization, but you have to need organization which you can have 100% sure that they are good people.
Yeah, loyal. Yeah.
Loyal, and the people who created Cheka, this was people like Dzierżyński, which are in many years in the revolutionary movement. Many times they were arrested in the prison. Many years they are sentenced in prison like this, and this is the history.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to Beirut, what is the truth about his repression of political opponents? So was it mainly, terrorists?
I don't think that he repressed many people. That we have in the time of the after 1945, we had 70,000 people who made terrorist activity against Poland. And normally when you have a terrorist, we don't discuss with terrorists. And normally you have 70,000 anti-communists, so we need minimum 70,000 of people who died. In time of Beirut, they killed only 15,000. So 55,000 of terrorists was not sentenced to death. So I don't think that
I believe that he killed even less, actually. I mean, the terrorists killed 15,000. I believe that according to what I read, it was like 6,000. But the real question is not really the number, but who were the people. But the anti-communists are so dishonest, so they said, these are, like a democratic opposition or something like that. You know that, yeah? Every terrorist, they can say that they are innocent, They're like
the problem with this anti-communist propaganda is that they don't want to speak about these people. They have only example the few person who was like Pilecki, that they can say, look, this is the hero in the time of war, and he was killed by communists after. Yes. But these people, like Pilecki, it's very, very minority of all these kinds of bandits. And in this propaganda, they don't Now it's changed. Now it's changed. In the last few 3-4 years, these bandits now is heroes. So now is easier. But before this, it was more complicated. Now Poland is very bad country because
Yeah, it's
now
insane. I was in Warsaw last year and I saw statue of Ronald Reagan.
It is shame. It is shame that Ronald Reagan he made sanction about to Poland in 1980s. He made
Yeah,
sanction that people are starving, and now they build him to monument. I don't understand this, but
yeah.
I
They
can
also have.
promise you that if we go, if we take power in Poland, this monument will be smashed in first day.
Yeah, also they have in Warsaw like um, a celebration of like the independence of the Baltic states. And if you know anything about the Baltic states, you know that they are pretty far to the right. You know, like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, and like they have the Forbes brothers, which are kind of like the chaos soldiers, and they also were like much the right, and now they are heroes. Yeah, and I find this remarkable. And yeah, but the other question is that I mean, many people believe that in like socialist countries, that the secret police can just enter your house without warrant. Is it true or is it like a fantasy?
You know, it's depend who write the history. Before Second World War, the Polish was the illiterated nation that only the rich are educated. Only the
Yeah,
rich write the book and stuff like this. And you know these rich educated people, many of them emigrated after Second World War, and when they are living in the United States or the Western Europe, they are taking money for the writing books to make propaganda
yeah,
against socialism in Poland.
like Alexander Solzhenitsyn in Russia.
Yes, he is different because he started his work in the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
I am speaking about Henryk Grudziński, who
mm,
emigrated to Western countries, and when he is in Western countries, he had to attack socialism. We have example now in Korea. If somebody fled the
yeah, I
North
know.
Korea and he is in
Yeah,
South
it's
Korea
insane.
and he wants to say something good about North Korea, he go to prison.
Yeah,
So you know, you can't trust these people emigrated who criticize Poland because I if you go to Poland, if you can talk with speak with the old people who was workers and ask him for a simple question: did ever in your life the police came to you to your house? To the miner, to the factory worker. You
yeah,
know, I never in my life, I
yeah.
have never in my life
Yeah,
have visited
even
the police.
in East Germany, like the Stasi is, you know, notorious. But if you are, but like most people never saw Stasi in their house.
Yeah, yes. So you know, now how the anti-communists are respond for this? They are using argument that workers are stupid.
Yeah,
They are people, but they are not true people. The true people, it is elites, and that only elites are important because elites are this educated and anti-communist, and
I
but
mean
workers
elites,
are,
not yeah, elites.
yes, elites,
Yeah,
and workers are stupid and easy manipulated by communists. So they it's shame that this
yeah, and but in my view, I mean, one of the tasks that we should do is to really, really, really write the history of all of these places in Europe, the USSR we have stuff, okay? So Albania, I mean, if you want to find stuff about Enver Hoxha, you know who is Enver Hoxha, right?
Yes, yes.
All of
Okay.
this, almost all the stuff you two will hear is very negative. You have heard about Matthias Rakosi from Hungary, the first leader of Hungary?
Yeah, yeah, Rakashi, yes.
Impossible to find good stuff about him. Impossible.
Yes, it's
Oh,
possible, but it is difficult. I
yeah,
can give you example. I study history in Poland, and I study in the time 2001 2008, and in the university in 1989, in the time of the counter-revolution, many people who was the member of the party, they started to be pro-capitalist, or
yeah,
they are was smashed away from the university. There are not many people who rest in the university. They stay in the university, but they don't want public say something about socialism. And I have chance that, for example, I made my study when I was studying. I collaborated with Professor Anna Żarnowska. She was very old. She died in the time when I was the student. She have, I don't know, 75 years old, and but in the time of the Polish socialism, she wrote many books about the history of the Polish working class. So they decided they write books about working class, not about the party of the working class. So they are she wasn't kicked out, but she was not very courageous. She didn't want it to speak publicly about socialism and stuff like this.
yeah,
But she helped me a lot. But now these people are not now in Polish university. It's only for the right or extreme right, or even for the fascist. The left are
yeah.
not.
Yeah, I mean, but the interesting thing is that when I asked this Polish guy that lived in Sweden, I asked him about Poland, and the negative stuff that he said to me had nothing to do with, totalitarianism or with like extreme censorship. In fact, he told me that the censorship was very mild. What he told me is that he didn't like corruption and the shortages in like the 80s and all of that. That's what he didn't like, which is, understandable. But the interesting thing is that he didn't call the country totalitarian. So that
Yes,
is,
yes. It's stupid because in the totalitarian society you don't have corruption, because if you are corrupted, you are killed,
yeah, yeah, and
or you are sent to the labor camp, and so it is proof that Poland wasn't totalitarian state.
yeah. Also, like if you look, for example, in the Soviet Union, I always find it funny that the capitalists are like, oh, the Soviet workers, we care about you know what I'm saying? That they say, the Soviet workers didn't have any rights, and that we were slaves. And like, since when do you care about workers? You know what I'm saying? When the capitalists do propaganda about the Soviet working class.
Listen, I am living in Paris. Every day in the Paris, you can find people who are sleeping in the streets, sleeping in the metro, sleeping in the. There are many people unemployed. There are many homeless people. There are beggars every day. It's impossible for you that now it's easier because we have pandemic. But before this, it is impossible in Paris that you are walking 10 minutes and the beggars don't come to you and give me money, give me money, give me money.
Yeah,
I am hungry and stuff like this. And in Soviet Union, you don't you wasn't the people are the houses houses given you by the states. You don't
And,
need
and
to go
and
to.
also they had a lot of rights in the workplace. I mean, one of the myths is that, they were just, no, they had much more rights in the workplace than we do in terms of, like criticizing management and voting on stuff and things
Of
like
course,
that.
and the management people, this is the people who came from working class. And
Yeah,
now you have the people who are I am your chef because my father is chef, and it's the monarchy now. It's the
yeah,
aristocratic feudalism society that I'm big because my family is. And in Soviet Union, you can we can take the example of the Stalin, and his son was imprisoned by the Germans. But Stalin don't care about this. He said there are many Soviet soldiers which are imprisoned by Germans, and it is war.
yeah. I
That
mean, if you look at this, the children and grandchildren of Stalin, most of them are still like working class in not high pay jobs. And well, it's interesting because there was a interview with Stalin, I believe, great grandson, and he said many interesting things that are true about his about Stalin. And he said, like for example, about the so-called Great Terror, and he said you blame the wrong guy, like you need to blame Yezhov. I mean, how many people heard the name Yezhov? You always have Stalin, Stalin, Stalin. Stalin purged his enemies. And one of the things that I heard when I was a child is that Stalin used to send people to starve, not starve, to freeze to death in Siberia. What is this language? Because it's like everyone was like sent to freeze to death to Siberia. But in reality, if you look at deaths to people in exile, whether you speak about kulaks or, by the way, another important thing is that the kulaks are often portrayed as some, innocent, naive farmers who were repressed because of some class hatred or something like that. They weren't so nice. I mean, they were known as being ruthless a lot before the Russian Revolution. That's why it's so incredible. And but if you look at the statistics of when they died, you see that they died only in years of natural calamities. So it means that the conditions that we were sent to in normal years were not that bad. I mean, even though maybe some place it was cold, but we were sent to. And if, for example, you look at the prisons of the Russian Empire, you see that the death rate was like 40%. But you never hear the anti-communists talk about it. And you also never hear them talk about the white terror in the Russian Civil War. About the crimes of the so-called white armies and the imperialists. I mean, they killed many, many people, but you never hear about it. It's like, yeah, it's history.
Yes, but now it's easy discuss about the numbers, because when we saw the capitalist countries in the Eastern Europe now, we see all this catastrophe demographic. For example,
Exactly.
Bulgaria have 10 million people in 1989. 10 million. Now
10 million?
yes, 10 million
10?
Bulgaria.
Now they are only like 4. 10
I think that
million?
5 million and 5.5. So and in Romania you have 20 million and now you have 16. So 4 million people disparate. In
Exactly.
Ukraine you have 51 million,
Now
and
it's
now
like 44.
no. Officially is 42, but when you
Wow.
speak about the Ukrainians, they are 35 people, 35 million. So it is catastrophe in every capitalist country which existed in after the contra-revolution. There are the fallen of the population in Poland
Yeah.
in 2020. 2020, we lost 140 40,000 people. And it is not only because COVID, but because
Yeah,
in
yeah, sure,
COVID
sure.
we lost 50,000 people, but we have 90,000 people who died in other
Yeah, I mean,
diseases.
a lot. Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that when I spoke to this Czech guy who now lives in Turkey, and he told me that, like, if you look at statistics, it seems that, like, in people in Czech Republic or in Slovakia, it may look like they, recovered, but in reality, most people are still worse off than in 1989 in Czech Republic and Slovakia, because the way that the capitalist system views like inflation, things like that are totally different. So, like, yeah, maybe people now, like, can buy certain luxury stuff more easily. But for example, in Slovakia, we still don't have universal healthcare. In Poland also, I mean, in Poland, your healthcare is catastrophic, right?
Yes, yes, yes. In theory, we have this, but in practice,
Yeah,
for example, in theory, in Poland, you can go to the dentist in the public, but you have to wait 2 years to public dent care. So if you have problem with your no tooth, yes, you
teeth,
will
yeah.
not if you will not wait 2 years if you are so you are going to private,
Yeah.
and we have the public service who don't work, and it is they didn't want to liquidate it, but they don't give money, and now
Yeah,
when we have epidemic it's
so in Israel, one of the propaganda say, oh, look, the public sector is inefficient, we need to privatize it. Or they say, or one thing that they do is that they want to turn working class against each other. So it's like, so for example, in the trade unions, we have a lot of problems in trade union in Israel. It's true. But you know why we have the problems? Because the trade unions are not class consciousness anymore. When you have capitalist state, even the politicians and the high-ranking workers in the trade unions, they are also part of the ruling class in a sense, if you understand what I'm saying. So the Histadrut, like the National Labor Union of Israel, so they're corrupt, and all of that is true. But like the solution that the right wing want to do is like, let's just get rid of most of the unions. And they have like some funny arguments. One is that if we will do it, then we will save money by cutting wages and stuff like that. And the other one is that we want to have equilibrium in the labor markets, which is just euphemism to say the wages are too high. Let's just lower them. So they say, probably in Poland you also encounter this type of propaganda, right? That we want to
yes,
try
but
to
the
divide
most big
working class.
problem, the biggest problem with the Soviet with the trade unions, it is the um, before trade unions, the ideology of the trade unions, it is class war. So the
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
our chef is our enemy, and now they are want the social dialogue. So the chef and we are together in one society, and we
Yeah,
have
that
to
is the problem in
together.
Israel also. Yeah, and it's really, really remarkable how much propaganda of class collaboration people have been fed. So, for example, people in my age or like a bit older tend to be libertarian. You know what is like libertarian, right?
Yes, yes.
That they believe that the problem is like big, because it sounds cool, right? It sounds nice. It's not, but it sounds. And another thing, another really fascinating propaganda, and that's something that I really like from your manifesto, is that you recognize that the petite bourgeoisie are not necessarily our friends, and that the small business owners can throw the working class under the rug when they need to. So, but in Israel, people believe that that they need to sacrifice themselves for this, the entrepreneurs.
Yes, this propaganda of the libertarian are very, very strong for the young people, but but in Poland, for example, we have the party which named Konfederacja. It's very popular in the people very young, but it's when you look the statistic of the sociology, you say you are older, you are smarter, you are more intelligent, so the popularity of this party is smaller and smaller. And I think that the people who are more than 50 years, nobody vote for them. But in
Yeah.
the people in 18, they are 40% who vote for the
Wow. Yeah,
Confederation.
it's interesting that Israel is one of the few Western countries that the generations like go more to the right, because in countries like the United States or United Kingdom, like young people tend to be left wing. I mean, often they are clueless, but this way you can, move them to the right solution. But in Israel, they tend to be more hawkish, open-minded about stuff, and so there is this thing called strategy of tension. Okay, so it's when you like Operation Gladys, it's when you do divide and rule to the population. You make people angry, and make people think rationally. So Israel is in a extreme mode of strategy of tension because people sometimes protest, but they protest, about Don Quixote that he fought against windmill. It means that you fight for nothing. You know what I'm saying? That you think that you fight, but you don't have any direction.
Yes, but it is also problem that now the communist parties are destroyed because bourgeoisie make good job for them. They create all these think tanks, all this
Yeah,
propaganda, and
exactly.
communist also was good in this in the 1950s 1960s. In 1960s in Europe, the intellectuals in Europe are leftists. If you said
Yeah,
in
that's why
1960s,
there was the cultural Cold War that the CIA did, that they tried to shift the left from being communist to being like postmodernist or speaking about third wave feminism and things like that. Yeah.
yes, but the catastrophe started in when the Soviet Union collapsed, when this party,
It was
communist
so
party
bad.
in yes, and the communist parties in the Western world are dispersed like this. That one day you have big party, and
Like
next
in
day
Italy,
you
yeah.
have nothing. You have nothing, and in this,
And
this
the wars in Yugoslavia was like one of the lowest points in the Western left. You remember the Yugoslav wars?
yes, that
No, but
West.
people in the left thought that it's humanitarian war. No, no, you don't
Yes.
understand. It's
If I don't know if you are listening my conversation with Michel Collon, he's the Belgian
yeah, I know him.
journalist,
Yeah,
but in French language he made many good videos, books about all this. Why the leftists from the Western countries before they are anti-imperialists, they participated in the movement against war in Vietnam, and now they are puppets of the imperialists. They support the
yeah. I mean, most of the people who criticize people for criticizing, the war in Syria are from the liberal left, not the conservatives. Many conservatives in Europe and the United States think that this war is insane. The war in Syria.
yes, that we have, for example, all this that we have Kurd in the Rojava
Oh my
who
God.
collaborated with United States.
Yeah, why? I'm
And
so glad that you know that because so many people believe that there is like a genuine thing there and we need to carve up Syria and And I can tell you that as Israeli is part of the greater Israel plan and the Balkanization, it's like very old plan. I mean, it has nothing to do with feminism or socialism or, thank goodness you know this. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and the anarchists in the Western countries and also Maoists, they build the international brigades to go to the Rojava, because in the Rojava they build the socialism like in Catalonia, or like is and but nobody said about one important thing, that uh, they can make something in Rojava because they collaborated with the US imperialism, who all the time make
And
the
in
shit.
reality, let me tell you something, there is nothing there. I mean, the SDF was there. The SDF is like the YPG is only part of it, and the SDF is mostly Arabs, meaning Arabs like massive. It's mostly mercenaries for Saudi Arabia. So in reality, we are talking about terrorist occupation, and most of the Kurds want to stay in Syria because they're not stupid, because they know that the Syrian government protect the rights. In my view, the best equivalent to it is the KLA in the 1990s. I mean, they are really similar what is going on there. And by the way, speaking about Catalonia, it, something that Grover 4 wrote, and I didn't know this recently, that part of the anarchist and Trotskyite movement in Catalonia was infiltrated by the Nazis and the fascists to cause divide and rule.
Yes, it is very, we don't have to search long. We have this history of the George Orwell, who was he fighting in the Catalonia, and after Second World War, he collaborated with the British intelligence and made all this stuff against the Soviet Union. So, comrade, we are speaking a little long, so I think that
Yeah, so
it's.
there is just one very important thing, and then we can wrap up. So, one very important thing is and this is a dire warning, okay? There is something called the fourth industrial revolution and the great reset that are coming, okay? And many people on the left just ignored it, and they let the right wing create a narrative. And many people on the left also didn't question enough what is really going on with COVID, how the ruling class uses COVID, how they use like how can I say it, biosecurity, like we used in this one. The same thing goes for climate change. Like why, like if you look at the history of like how climate change, like how climate change became the main issue of the ecological movement, and how it was co-opted, and how these are very important topics that many people on the left just ignore. They are very dangerous because in Israel, not only Israel, I mean, if you look at what the plans are, you understand that what we prepare for is for some sort of techno-feudalism, the ruling class. And that is very dangerous, and people need to be aware about it. But the hope that I have is that because I believe that our biggest danger is not extinction, but the ruling class, I also believe that if we win, we can actually create a very good world. And that's why I still remain optimistic. And I still tell to people, lift to chin up, but you need to know who your enemies are. And you need to be very careful about cognitive infiltration. Cognitive infiltration, remember that word. Okay, so if you have people who say that they are on the left, but they push to you the same propaganda, ruling class pushes. Be very careful about it. So yeah, want to ask me
Yes.
some stuff?
I want to say something about this using COVID to smash the protest. That in France we have since November 2018 we have big movement of the Yellow
Yellow
West.
vest. Yeah.
Yes, and it was Yellow Vest movement. 1 year after, it was the strike general against Macron for the pensions, and it was finished in the time when Macron decided that now we have the quarantine, confinement, and because we have epidemic. And you know, in the 15 months, you have every week you have a big demonstration in Paris and in other cities, very strong movement. And after this quarantine stopped, everything stopped,
Exactly, exactly.
people are
And
still.
and the thing is that they use it's two things. One is the politics of so before it was communism, then it was Islam, and now it's like and you are not allowed to think. You're not allowed to question anything. You just and another thing is called the shock doctrine. So if you so in my view in my view what happened it goes like this. Capitalism was in a long depression from 2008 to now, meaning that profitability was low, uh, investment opportunities were relatively scarce, and we needed something. And like always with fascism, okay, they cannot win it in a ballot box, okay. So they needed a crisis, okay. Again, because I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not going to ask what is COVID. That's not what I'm going to conversate with you about it, okay? It will be a waste of time. What I'm going to say is that what they want to do is we want to see how they are able to change things quickly, and they want to implement blockchain technology, which will be absolute tyranny, and also the Internet of Things, which means that we want, Marx talked about the enclosure movement, that you take things, and so they want to take everything and make it into capital. So really, look at the World Economic Forum, look at all of that stuff. I mean, they are the real ruling class, and the right wing say, "Oh, it's communism, it's communism." No, it's not communism. Netanyahu is not. And I don't know what to say. Another thing, one of the biggest mistakes that the left did in the 20th century is that we didn't address the issue of technology enough. So we look at technology as if it's like class neutral. But in reality, technology, that's something that I really liked from your manifesto that you said that the fact that we have internet doesn't mean that people will work less, right? Under capitalism, okay? So they want to present, the fourth industrial revolution as like it's just natural evolution for technology. No, it's about getting rid of massive human labor. It's about controlling every part of our life and about merging us with machines. It has nothing to do with improving the working class. And all of those words about inclusivity and about all of the stuff, it's just rubbish. Like Hitler, called himself populist. Was he really populist? Of course not. You know what I'm saying? So we should never trust the ruling class because they are smart and we are confused. I mean, yeah.
Yes, but you see, I think that because in the set, the things which you said, you supposed said that they know what they are doing. I think that the bourgeoisie in the Western countries panicked now. They panicked because they lost the socialist countries like Vietnam, Cuba, China a little. It's not socialist for me, but are using. They 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 showed the world that in the time of the epidemic they are better socialism in this country, social how they manage the problem with epidemic. They win the battle with the capitalists, and of course now they try to use this COVID to reorganize something. But I think that the future is ours, because people every day in these capitalist countries, for example in USA, they fight about the Medicare for all, and Sanders are popular because are shouting Medicare for all. But Medicare for all exists in Cuba, exists in Vietnam, and
but the problem is that people are very confused, and when you talk about like the clients and stuff, but let's talk about your point. I mean, you're right about something, but I don't think that you quite get it. What I think that really happens, I can tell you this from Israel, the same is in the UK, is that on the contrary, what they want is that they want to inflate the death numbers and the cases number, because every time they do it, they can restrict it again and then open, because they have this plan long time. Again, I'm not saying, of course, socialism is better in dealing with pandemics and stuff like that, but I believe that this thing is part of the politics of fear. And if you look at, for example, the fact that only Bill Gates, but many of them from the early 20th century, like the eugenics movement, they care about health. So they want to, in my view, there is a woman called Corinne Morningstar did this about climate change. I mean, not about the science, but about how they use it. You might read her. So they need emergency quick, because so you're right that the local bourgeoisie, the petty bourgeoisie actually suffer. But if you look at the real ruling class, like the high, I mean, in fact, they will do really, really well, because when you have a reset, you can rob the public treasury and you can introduce those new changes, and you can expect people to get lower working conditions, etc. And also, because when there is a massive destruction of capital, then the winners, the ones that stay afloat, can borrow more cheaply. That's what happened after World War II. When there was massive destruction of capital, the cost of capital went down, and then the rate of profit went up, and that's one of the things that allowed the middle class to exist under capitalism. So that is my view. And the reason I'm talking about it because what is social engineering, right? So if you take lines, and so one of the lines that were fed to the left over and over, and it's like it's saving the lives or it's saving the economy. And if you say it enough, when people stop thinking, and so because the purpose of propaganda is to manufacture consent. It doesn't matter what you say. You can say it one way to a certain group, you can sell it in another way to other group. But if you make everyone support the same policy, that's what matters the most. And in reality, if you look at it, in fact, should really, 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 really doubt that the World Health Organization, which is, a imperialist organization, would really, really care about saving lives of people. And also, if you look at the way they implement it, it's more, you see things that really, really resemble eugenics. From, for example, the forced vaccination in Israel, at least, to the fact that they get rid of, elderly people and all of that. And let's say, And what really made me get really skeptical is that I realized that we getting fascist much quicker, because you know what is the definition of fascism? It's a it's a public-private partnership. And when I see that everything became privatized, you know, the media, the universities, or and not only about COVID in general, that is a really dangerous sign. You see, so for example, I say, oh, okay, so they have in Israel the like if you don't have like COVID passport that you cannot go to certain places. They say, oh yeah, it sounds like it's nice, but in reality, they're doing it for two reasons. First of all, it's in the first implementation of blockchain technology, which means they want to condition people to believe that what the capitalists and the companies tell them, okay, that if you do this, we will be able to enjoy ta 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 ta. And if not, no. And the other thing is that one last thing that was really rare for like the ruling class to hold is your medical data. They have everything on you, but they need your. So it's about full spectrum dominance of the capitalists, and yeah, and I see now that Israel becomes even more authoritarian, and believe me, the near future, and you should really be aware about it, because they have been planning, I'm not going to COVID or kind of thing, but they have been planning to have extreme class repression not seen since the days of Hitler and Mussolini. So be very careful, but remember that if we have good organizations, when we are not afraid of talking about taboo, we are not afraid of getting called anti-vaxxer, things like that, then we can actually change the world for the better, and we can actually create a better world. And that is my view. That's why I'm optimistic, because when I see things now, I realize that like we can work 15 hours a day in our current level of productivity and development. But and the only reason that we are not doing it is because you know the investment is for profit and not for use. You know, so that's why I'm optimistic. You know, I'm not pessimistic at all actually. But I just believe that people need to understand how propaganda works, and I read some stuff from Hitler. Hitler understands very well how propaganda works. So if you understand how the Nazis used propaganda, then maybe things.
So you are the first leftist which I know who are interesting about the future in the question the COVID. It is interesting which you said. I have to say that
Yeah,
never.
but I actually know some other. Yeah, I mean it's really that is like the really frustrating thing, because I met some people on the left, Twitter and all of that, who a lot, especially like Mark Snace of that, and I'm just so frustrated that the right gets that much better, because the right tell to people like oh, it's communism, or they tell to people like we're going to get your freedom, but we don't believe it, like the right wing, they're just propagandists. But like, it just, in my view, demonstrates that we should cater towards the population that the right wing wins. Because, for example, in Israel, who do you think votes for the right wing in Israel? It's the working classes. We should get those people. We shouldn't alienate them.
Yes, it's in Poland also many many Polish many people from the down the working class are they are supporters of the very
No
stupid
injustice.
ideas. So,
Yeah,
comrades, I think that in future we can continue this discussion about COVID. Maybe I
never.
will invite somebody who know this subject better, because
Yeah,
I
I have
am.
another guy that I can recommend you if you want. It's a guy called Paul Kudenek. His name is Winter Oak. He's like a British anarchist. If you want, you can
uh,
have him, maybe. But he's not
yes,
anti-communist.
yes. But you know this discussion, because I am in my political work, I am concentrated about theory and concentrated about the past, about the history. I
Yeah, which is very
explain why,
important
and
in my view.
because I am concentrated in the history, I am not concentrated about this future, these things which is now. I am not many watching media today. What is? I
Yeah,
am tired
I'm
of
also
this.
like that. I mean, I'm very. That's one of the reasons that. So if you speak again, of course, we can have more conversation about like socialist countries from Hungary to, because that's a very interesting subject to me because I believe that as long as people believe in the West that we are free and that in these countries, we are like totalitarian or something like that, we can never move forward, you know? As long as people believe the false history, they will never be able to dare and rise up because they are afraid.
Yes, I only want to finish what I am thinking, because these things which you are afraid, I saw that there are many similar things in the China now, and I am not afraid this, because I think that if state control the population, I prefer this system than that libertarianism where everybody make what he want. I know many idiots from internet who said don't wear a mask, don't vaccinate yourself, and I prefer state control the
No, but it's
epidemia.
not state. It's state. It's the capitalist state. It's not state. That's what I was trying to
Yes.
suggest.
But I don't. The bourgeoisie, they are the motherfuckers, but they don't. They want to make a state who works. They don't want to state who will fallen. And libertarianism with this individualism, egoism, that liberty for myself. I am ill, but I don't want to stay in my house. I will go to the street and give
Yeah,
my virus
but
to
just
everybody.
very important thing. One last thing. What you said now just demonstrated to me how effective the social engineering work because the idea that just get your mask. Or it's not saying like that's propaganda. That's how war propaganda works. The same thing for vaccination. So again, I'm saying to you, you should be pro-vaccination or anti-vax. But when I see that you sound angry and I say, oh, those stupid. That is the problem that the left have today. That they are completely brainwashed by this propaganda and they don't see this because many people who opposed wars, they oppose things, but they don't see that all of this ruling class, all of those people are the same people that brought us the Iraq war. They brought us everything. So like, people need to wake up soon. That's how we're going to end this conversation. And I'm really glad that you let me come here because I'm doing my best along with other people that I know on Twitter to get this message across to the left because the more people continue this line, as you said, the more the right wing will be able to say that it's communism and what is going on. So, what we don't like. So, just warning you, okay, because it's very
Okay.
important. So, for example, when I saw Luna always say something in Twitter, I really criticize them hard because for me there are certain things that are inexcusable And in general, when I see people who call themselves left and they say established narrative, whether it's about communism, about Stalin, thing like that, I cannot stand it. So if I see leftists that say, "Oh, Stalin," no, I criticize it immediately. So if I see, because I'm honest with you, I don't. My job is not to cater to audience and to kind of twist the narrative in order to be acceptable in the breadtube community and all of that. And I'm really glad that you let me say what I had to say here.
Yes, but don't you see that difference between Vietnam? That in Vietnam they are state which organize this how manage the epidemic, and
We
everybody
closed the
in the
border
epidemic. Huh?
immediately. We closed the
Yes,
borders immediately.
yes, and
Immediately.
it's worked. And in France, in Poland, we have 500 people died every day about this.
Yeah,
And
but
in Vietnam, you don't have this.
we can talk about this another time about how the statistics works, about how science of it works, and like the fact of the matter is that let me tell you something. The ruling class media, Netanyahu, all of those people push this agenda of like we need to, wear mask, get vaccinated. I mean, in Israel, like everyone was like masked and did nothing. So as I was saying that like these things complicated and if you just say okay Vietnam or like China, I mean I tend also to believe that like there was also a difference in the way I mean China and Vietnam dealt with it by just saying okay we're going to treat you and if you die but they didn't try to create fear mongering. In fact, if you look at China, for example, you see that after they did their like lockdown of that, but they opened, they didn't close, open, close, open, close, because China doesn't it doesn't seem like the Chinese ruling class um, take wants to crush their own workers and all of that stuff. That's what I'm trying to suggest and yeah and I'm getting very very angry when people say but Vietnam. I say you know what, just fuck them, okay. I'm not going to let this fucking Vietnamese going to take my freedom and my country, okay. I'm not going to let this Vietnamese so-called communist saying to us in Israel that we should have all of this insane control of the ruling class, this fourth industrial, all of that stuff. So sorry that I got mad, but these things just get me insane. So when I see that people on the left just so dogmatically say, but Vietnam, or but China, or but, yeah.
Okay, I see that we have difference big about this. I am not specialist about this epidemic. I
Yeah, I'm
think that
also not, listen,
uh,
the way I look at things is not, I mean, you have many people in Israel, places that look at it like medically, but in my view, they are missing the point. I look at it in terms of propaganda and in terms of the ruling class bigger plans that came a long, long before the pandemic. Like,
and
so
try to make debate with Luna about epidemia, about pandemic. It could be very interesting.
maybe, okay.
Mm,
But thanks for having me, and I hope that next
mm,
time
mm.
we can. But I hope that what I really really hope that you got from it is not so much the COVID, but I hope that you understand what the ruling class agenda, also from before COVID, is and why they need what is like, for example, in the yellow vest, you saw how the carbon tax got people angry. So that's their agenda. They want people to get impoverished. They want to control people. And people need to understand that their plan needs to be stopped now, and we need to lead the resistance, because what happens right now is that the far right leads people to believe that it's like either this or there is like nice capitalism. And what I say is no, what we're going to happen is the direct result of the crisis of capitalism. So, yeah, so we should really, so that is for me the most important thing that we will understand more than COVID and how to treat COVID, and that we will understand what is the fourth industrial revolution, what Great Reset, how we are going to, so what is like carbon sequestration and all of that nonsense that we want to use to fuck us all and all of that. So yeah, that is for me the most important thing, not COVID per se. And another thing is, yeah, if we can talk soon about like history of communism, all of that, that's also very, very important.
Okay, thank you, comrades.
Thank you very much.
And
So
I will finish
when
this.
you will upload this, because I want to send it to someone.
It will be uploaded now. It is
Oh,
now,
okay.
but it is because it was direct.